Welcome to Reading Under the Covers, a romance novel podcast where we chat, fangirl, and maybe even swoon over our latest reads. I'm Francesca from Under the Covers Book Blog, and today we are talking about a topic that I have recently taken a huge liking to, and that is mood reading. So, the concept of mood reading is not new, and it is something that I kind of dabbled in throughout the years of all of the years that I've been reading, and especially since starting the blog back in 2011. So, as the early years of our blog, mood reading really became a topic to talk about on social media. I always dabbled in it. But it wasn't until a few years ago where I really took hold of the concept and ran with it and understand now the importance of it and how you can also incorporate it in your own reading life. So, okay, real talk. Have you ever stood in front of your bookshelf or scrolled through your Kindle and just felt absolutely nothing? Like nothing was calling your name, nothing was really enticing you. You have all of these books, hundreds and hundreds, or maybe thousands of books, thanks to the digital nature of ebooks nowadays, but none of them feel just right. Has that ever happened to you? I know that it's happened to me many, many times, but it really became something that I had to figure out how to make work when I hit a huge reading slump a few years ago. And I actually ended up not reading basically for 2 years. It was basically like I had built this perfect TBR prison for myself and I was just dying inside of it. So today I'm going to be sharing here how I broke free from that jail and how I embraced mood reading and just really actually started to enjoy reading again. It was like starting over all fresh. Spoiler alert, that also included me rage quitting some arcs, not taking my reading too seriously, and maybe even diving into orc romance. So let me rewind this back to my 2022 book Slump. This is not the first time that I have gone years without reading. I also had a huge reading slump when I was in my early 20s. And I think at that time it was probably because I got burnt out from reading a lot of category romances from Harlequin or Mills and Boone, let's say. And I was just reading so many of those, at least a book every single night. And it got to a point that I just burned out and I just couldn't continue reading. Because after reading so many of them, they all started to blend together. And I couldn't even tell you right now, even a name of one of the authors that I read back then. But again, it was a lot of them. And I ended up taking all of those paperbacks and I donated them to my library and just basically quit reading for several years. Now, what brought me back into reading that time was going for my roots, which was my love for things that were paranormal and supernatural, because what I used to love to read when I was a teenager was anything paranormal. I think Anne Rice was a huge part of my reading life. With discovering the Sookie Stackhouse series, I just got right back into my love for things that were paranormal and supernatural. And basically, I discovered urban fantasy. Slowly from there, I went to paranormal romance, and then I slowly made my way to other subgenres of romance. And in a way, I feel like that was also mood reading in the sense that I would find something that I would really, really jive with and love, and I would just binge right through either that series, that author, or that particular trope or style. So in my case, for sure, it was going through series back to back to back until I finished the series. I don't really do that anymore. And then I would hyperfixate on that author and have to read their whole backlist. And actually, hyperfixating on something in this way, it is also a way of mood reading. You find the thing that works for you and you just run with it. The downside of that is that it can burn you out because the same thing happened to me before with the category romances from Harlequin. They start to blend together, and at some point, you need something a little bit different. But back to my 2022 slump. It actually happened because of a book that broke me, and it was a book by a beloved author. And it was also an ARC. ARCs are advanced reader copies for those that don't know, and we as reviewers get those in order to read those early before publication and be able to recommend them to you guys. We've run Under the Covers book blog since 2011, so over the years, obviously, we do get a lot of ARCs to read. And that tends to both add pressure and guilt and set TBRs. So the pressure of setting a TBR because of ARC deadlines is definitely the quickest way to put a damp on how much you enjoy reading. And that may not happen for everyone, but it certainly happens to me all the time. And speaking of arcs, I also really always struggled with the fact that I am in the mood or excited about reading a particular book when I request it. And by the time it comes in, that mood has passed. But now, because I have that arc, I still feel like I have to read it. So it makes that reading experience a little bit less natural and it flows a little bit less. So when you are a reviewer, there is that added pressure that really messes with your mood reading and the flow of your reading journey. Up to 2022, I was still very much that girl. I had my arc schedule. These are the arcs I requested. These are the deadlines of when the reviews have to be posted, and everything else had to be worked around that. And yes, sometimes I was late, but for the most part, I tried to stick to delivering those reviews when they were due, meaning posting them on the blog. I had my color coded Notion dashboard with all the books that I had to read for every single month, with the dates, the calendar. And after many, many years of that, it just felt very restrictive. I often felt also that I couldn't explore things that I would see that I wanted to read because I just didn't have the time to add something else because I had overcommitted myself on art. So the moment that reading becomes a chore is when you need to shake things up. I didn't do that right away, and I went into this huge reading slump. So, like I said, it was about 2 years of reading almost nothing. I started books, I dropped them. I started books, I dropped them. And then I think over a period of 2 years, I might have started 3 or 4 books, and I left them about halfway every single time. And that brings me to one of my tips and recommendations when it comes to mood reading. And that is something that I had to learn myself. So I suggest that you learn it as early as possible, and that is to give yourself permission to DNF a book. If you're not feeling it right now, just put it down. Now, that doesn't mean that you're never going to come back to it. It can be a temporary break, but it can also be a permanent break, and that is totally fine either way. So I think during that period of time of being in my book slump and actually putting down books and deciding I'm not going to go back to it, it's what actually really helped me to get rid of the guilt of DNFing books. And I think that small, tiny act of rebellion, it was really freeing for me because at the end of the day, life is too short to continue reading something that you're not enjoying. It is not your job to keep reading the book. Reading and books are not your homework, even if you are providing a review for a publisher or an author. So just repeat after me: DNFing is not a moral failure. And here's a tip that I'm going to give to you: give the book 3 to 4 chapters. If it's not working for you, either decide to put it aside and try again at another time and see how it does, or consider switching up the format, because a lot of times something that's not working for me on ebook form will work for me on audio. I tend to actually know already for myself there are certain genres that I prefer to listen to versus reading them on ebook. So either they're really great on paperback, on physical form, or on audio, or on ebooks. So try to figure out what works for you. But if it's not working, try to switch it up if you have the chance. And otherwise, just toss it to the DNF graveyard. But here comes the second most important aspect of mood reading, at least in my journey, that I want to bring to you. And that is tropes. We've been running this blog for a really long time. Tropes have been an essential part of the conversation around books, and especially around romance books, all throughout our blogging career. Now they're super popular and used as marketing tools as well, but tropes are such an easy way for you to find something that fits exactly your mood. And what does it mean, fitting your mood? Maybe your mood is that you saw something on TV. Maybe it's a movie, maybe it's a TV show, maybe it's just some random story or video that you saw on TikTok. And then from that, you want to read something that just embodies the vibe, the aesthetic, or that story. I'm going to give you an example from last year. I had seen a TikTok video of a woman at the beach, and then there is a man kneeling down in front of her proposing, and then there's a second man kneeling down in front of her and proposing, and then there's a third man kneeling down in front of her and proposing. And then scrolling through the comments, everybody was saying that, oh my God, this is just like Faking with Benefits by Lily Gold. And guess what? I dropped everything that I was reading and picked up that book, and I actually ended up really having fun with it and enjoying it. And the reason I picked it up was simply because I saw that TikTok, I vibed with it, I thought it was super fun, and then there was actually a book that told a story that was similar to what we were seeing on that video, and I just had to read it. So if there is like an actual example of what giving yourself the freedom to mood read means, That is the perfect example. The most random thing will just inspire you to want to read a story that reflects whatever that feeling or that moment or that story is. And you just go with it immediately. You drop everything else without caring if you're in the middle of reading something else. But back to the tropes and why that is so easy. Maybe you're just feeling like reading about a grumpy boss. Maybe you're feeling in the mood for something dark and you want something mafia related, and you go and immediately pick up a mafia romance. And maybe you hyperfixate on that and you want to read a bunch of mafia romances. Or maybe you're scrolling through TikTok and you're watching some beautiful videos of figure skating couples and you want to read a figure skating romance where both of the main characters are figure skaters and they're actually either skating together as a team or they're actually the opposing enemies teams that are always going up against each other. So if you happen to find that video with figure skaters, you can simply go and use your crutch of tropes and find books that would fit perfectly that mood and that vibe. Just use tropes basically as the menu for mood readers. And if you think that tropes are just very basic, maybe it's because you don't know enough about tropes or you don't know enough tropes. And if that is the case for you, I actually have a free downloadable over on our Substack. So you can get that for free when you sign up for our Substack. That gets delivered immediately to your email. And there are 400 tropes on that PDF. So they can serve as your inspiration for you to maybe know what you're looking for. And you can simply just use that and search for a book recommendation either on Reddit or on blogs. Obviously, you can always check out underthecoversbookblog.com for those tropes and kind of like niche book lists. So basically, if you take one thing from this episode, is the fact that, let's be real, reading should be a joyful experience and it's very personal. It is not a performance, it is not a chore. So this week I want to challenge you to pick up a book purely on vibes. Don't let anyone shame you for DNFing a book or just reading 12 hockey romances in a row. If anyone's doing that, just send them my way, because let me tell you, I've been so enjoying Kindle Unlimited and reading all of the monster romances last year that I have a library full of them and zero regrets. If you've been trying to push through reading a book that is just not doing it for you, send that book to the DNF graveyard and don't feel any guilt for it. So now, what about you? Are you a mood reader? Have you ever picked up a book just on vibes like I did when I picked up Faking with Benefit? Head on over to Substack. I have a post detailing more about mood reading, and also for paid Substack members, you can download a mood reader survival kit, and it includes also a DNF certificate that you can print out and put in your reading journals as well. So come and join us on Substack, share in the comments or in the chat, and let me know what was the latest book that you read purely on vibes, and what are some of your tips for mood reading, DNFing, keeping a TBR, and actually maybe combining the two together. And with that, that is all I have for you guys today. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. I look forward to hearing from you. And don't forget that you can find all of the trope and mood reader recommendations at underthecoversbookblog.com. And if you're looking for mysteries and thrillers, those are going to be at mysterylandia.com. Be sure that you sign up for free to our Substack so you don't miss any of the content that we post across all of our platforms. And consider upgrading your subscription to a paid subscription on Substack. And that actually gives you access to our tags or tropes database. So basically, we add all of the books that are on our lists on the blog to the database. You can simply go to that trope or character type or setting, and you can see all of the books that we have listed for that in the database, which will make it super easy for you to find a book that fits your mood in a couple of clicks. Plus, you also get the upcoming book releases database as well, which has over 150 books every single month that are releasing across multiple genres. All of the links are going to be in the show notes down below, as well as links to all of our socials. Thanks so much for listening and hanging with me today. I hope you find a wonderful book to read this weekend, purely on vibes, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.